Darling, I think often of the first 2 or 3 times that I saw you, how that there was something of great importance to me in my new friendship. There was something that excited me inside. I guess it was just that I half-consciously realized that I had seen the girl that I wanted more than any other I had ever seen. I love you.
I have a new life now. I have many friends. I have new interests, things that I had not even thought of doing before. Also, I found that I have more inner resources than I knew I had. He was always here to open a jar, and I couldn't. And I've not mastered that entirely yet. But I also have a neighbor that helps me if I can't open a jar.
I like my home. I like what I do. I do, my interests, and I'm busy. I don't have to just sit. I've made a lot of acquaintances, and I like the opportunities of doing other things here as you can in Bloomington.
I come to church quite frequently, of course, teaching Bible at times. I think that it's necessary for me to be out into public to really feel my best. That way I push myself and the energy seems to come then and give me the strength that I need. My neighbors say that my car goes in and out of the garage very frequently.
I was born in 1917, which makes me 93 years old, and in 2 months it'll be 94. And I am so grateful that I have lived in this particular period of time. I think it is the best time ever. I have seen more changes than one can imagine. And literally, I was born in the horse and buggy days, literally, because I started school with a horse-drawn school bus, or school hack, they called it, with a stove in it and pulled by 2 horses. In our town, they had a Saturday night band concert, and they had a bandstand in the middle of the street, and so we dressed up and we'd go to town on Saturday nights, and then later we went free movies that they put on the side of a building, and people would go and get their chairs in the afternoon and get a good seat, and we would enjoy Western shows on the side of the building. So I had a good childhood. The night before I left to go to business school, I was reluctant to leave. I loved my community. My church was my church family, and the night before I left, the people were wishing me well, and I was sad and shed a few tears to leave home. I didn't want to go to a big city. And we had a visiting pastor, and he said, "Mildred, I know it would be easier for you to stay home right now, but," he said, "we need people like you to go and make a difference. You go and we will be proud of you."
I was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1924, and my maiden name was Barbara Catherine Jackson. I enrolled in a school called the Catherine Gibbs. Catherine Gibbs is still going strong today, but it was basically they would call it then a secretarial school, but it was, you took liberal arts classes along with typing and shorthand. And if you graduated from there, you had no problem getting a job. Women were needed. The men were in service.
I'm Dorothy Brenton. I was Dorothy Elmore as my maiden name, and I lived in Covington, Indiana when I was born. I moved to Indianapolis after I was married and lived there for 47 years. My dream was being a school teacher because my mother had been a school teacher, and I did not think very much about getting married. In fact, I kept saying I had an aunt that was a school teacher also, and she was an old maid, as they said at the time, and so that was what I thought I wanted to be, was an old maid school teacher. But I changed my opinion after I met my husband. I went to the Subway, which was a little cafe that was down underground, and I wanted a Coke. And in came a gentleman that I had dated and knew, and he brought two brothers with him. They had helped him move into a rooming house, and so he was treating them to a Coke. And he introduced me to them and asked me how I was getting along with my chemistry, because I was having a lot of trouble. So I told him just as bad as I had been getting along before. And so he said, well, these two boys are lab assistants in the chemistry department, so I feel they could help you. And so my husband spoke up and he said, I would be very happy to help you, and when can we get together? And I said, I live across the street. We could go right now if that's suitable. So that's what we did, but we didn't get much chemistry done that day. When he went off to service, it was just sort of expected that I had agreed to be his girlfriend for life, so to speak. And so we wrote every night. He would write me and I would write him. And sometimes the letters would not get through, and maybe I'd have two or three at once and he'd have two or three at once. And so his brother took over the task of walking me to class. That way we could discuss if he got a letter and I didn't, or I got a letter and he didn't. So that way we got acquainted that way.
When I started writing to you, I just wanted to go on and on and on. I sure do appreciate hearing from you, and I can't hear too often either. Yes, I think often of the times we've been together. Truly, they have been numerous for such a short time of acquaintance. Hey, maybe it's love. Yes, that's right. It most certainly is, and it couldn't be better, could it, dear? Again, the sweet words, I love you.
This is the book I made of our wedding after the wedding was over. And it includes the ring cases and my drawing, and then the corsage that I wore. This was our engagement picture. It came out in the paper. And then this was our wedding picture that came out in the paper.
His family sublet my mother and dad's apartment when he was about 7 or 8, and I was 5. He had known my family and my mother and dad from the time, we were children. They were like aunt and uncle. And he was just out of the service and come back from the Philippines. And I came home from New York, and my dad worked, and determined to be nice because I didn't care for him very much. He was a tease. And his comment to me was, you've grown up. We went out for dinner that evening, and we talked, and he stayed for a few days. And our courtship, so to speak, was long distance because he was living in Ohio, and our families really didn't know that this was going on. We knew it would be fun to see the family's reaction when we told them, because I'm sure they didn't. They didn't expect it. My father-in-law was so surprised because I had a sister, and his first question to Bob when Bob told him that he was going to get married, and his dad asked him which sister was it. So, you know, that was a family joke. That I certainly never thought I'd end up marrying him. You know, that was the farthest thing.
I met Carlisle unexpectedly at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon in Crawfordsville, Indiana, as he was going from campus. He was a junior in Wabash College. And I'd been warned about those Wabash College boys. And by a chance meeting, we met, and he was different from anyone I'd met, and he wore a suede jacket that looked like it had been slept in, maybe, and he hadn't shaved for 3 or 4 days, I think. But I liked his smile, and I liked his manner, and before it was over, I had agreed to go out with him the next Sunday evening, and I almost canceled it. I thought, what in the world did I do this for? I don't know the man. And here he came, walking. He had a suit and a white shirt and a necktie, and he was shaved, and he was handsome. And I looked out, there was no car. He didn't have a car, but I didn't know that. So he had walked. I figured the evening he'd walked 1.5 miles out to my house. We walked back downtown to go to a movie. It was full, so we said, well, we'll go to the second one. And we walked all evening, and then walked me back home, and then he walked back to the fraternity house. And in that evening, we really became very well acquainted, and never did go to the movie. It was at wartime at that time, and there was so much restlessness and uncertainty. We didn't know if we were going to be involved in it. We married during that critical time with very little. In fact, if I remember correctly, he borrowed money from his dad for us to have a weekend honeymoon in Grand Haven, Michigan. It was an exciting time. We bought our first house, and we paid $900 for a house, an old house, but a nice corner lot that had a little brook running through the corner, and I had great dreams about that house. And I think one of the happiest memories I have was that spring at that little house, and the daffodils that were already there that bloomed, I thought were absolutely beautiful. And Mother's Day, my husband took John David, our little boy, with him to the nursery and bought a little geranium. And so he came, I can see him yet, walking across the yard, him carrying that little pot of geraniums and saying, Happy Mama's Day. We knew each other well. We discussed things. We were able to explore each other's minds and decide what we liked and what we didn't. And we developed over a period of time. And so I think that it was because we shared so much, and he was always so kind. We worked things out together. And I think that's it. I look back, I just don't, I know we didn't always agree on things, but we worked it out, and to both of our satisfactions. And that's what we've tried to do our whole 68 years. We were married 68 years. So.